Welcome to Liquid Courage, the podcast where I, Amanda Pereira, sit down with a fellow artist that I admire and ask them the questions I've never had the guts to ask them before. Sounds scary? Yeah, it really is. So I use a little liquid courage in the form of my guest's favorite drink. We cheers, chat, and connect as I attempt to soak up all the wisdom they have to offer. Today I sit down with Samantha Wan and we throw back some scotch. Samantha is a filmmaker currently based out of Toronto. Alongside Amanda Joy, she created and starred in OMNI and City TV's comedy series Second Gen, which was nominated for a Canadian Screen Award and has successfully run for 3 seasons now. At just 23 years old, Samantha became one of the youngest creators to have a primetime series in Canada. She was commissioned by OMNI TV to create its first original digital series, Sudden Master, a kung fu series that went on to earn numerous awards around the world. Outside of acting in her own projects, you may recognize Samantha as Zoe Chow from Private Eyes or Cathy from CBC's Run the Burbs. More recently, Samantha has set her sights on directing, picking up director credits in both TV and film. She directed half of the final season of her series Second Gen and was the director behind the digital series Lady Ada's Secret Society, earning her an award for Best Director at the Sydney Web Festival and a nomination for Best Director at the NYC Stareable Film Festival this year. Samantha also directed the TV movie Love at Sky Gardens and the Hallmark movie Road Trip Romance, both of which are available to watch in Canada and the US. So Samantha is an actor, a director, and someone I admire immensely. Hey. Hi, Samantha, officially.
Hi.
Hi. And I didn't even mention while we were getting set up, but I do have my little drink. I wore a shirt to match it. I just realized.
It's so lovely. I know. I was like, what a cool shirt for that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I put it on. I'm like, do I look very uptight? Like, this is my first time meeting Samantha. I want to seem cool. And then I realized I matched the drink, which is
I'm not cool at all, so it's totally
oh yeah, right.
It's totally fine.
Oh, I had such a journey researching you, Samantha. I truly did. I went into like, wow, I like full inferiority complex, and then I was like, why am I comparing myself? That's not what Samantha would want anyway. And then I was like, well, she's just so lovely. Look, she's even more evolved. I went into a full and fell in love with you. Anyway, so I think you're very cool.
Thanks so much. I go down that rabbit hole all the time.
Fun fucking rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Cheers to the coolness of you before we get started here.
And the coolness of you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Samantha. Thanks for coming. Okay. Oh my God, I turned off my heat because I knew this would warm me up.
Oh, smart. I haven't had just a neat whiskey or scotch in like so long. And I'm like, oh man. And I haven't been drinking lately. So this might tank me.
Well, you know what? You take as small sips as you want. You start drinking water if you want, or you lean into it if you want. This is a safe space. All I want to do is take care of you. So I
actually might get some water. I just realized I took one sip and I was like, you need water.
Yes, grab some water.
Actually,
yes, you need water.
I was also told you're supposed to put a little bit of water to open up the flavor of the whiskey in, and I forgot about that bit.
Ooh.
I know. People are fancy, and like not me. I'm not people. That's why I said people are fancy.
People are fancy.
I am back with my creaky chair, my water.
I love. And you have like the official ice cubes. I was pouring ice cubes in, being like, "Oh God, if I believed in hell, I would be going there because these are full water ice cubes."
No, but some people really I think it's legit to like it on ice because I just put a bit of water in mine because it opens up the flavor. So I think it's a legit thing to like.
Yeah, I just have I'm gonna have a delayed opening up of the flavor. This is probably the way that you should do it. Okay, so Samantha, I'm so excited to talk to you. I truly am. Okay, and I have so many lovely things. I have so many things I would like to ask you about your lovely life and lovely career and lovely person that you are. Okay, so first thing is, as myself as an actor in Canada, I find myself often romanticizing pilot season, like in the States. And I was listening to a podcast and you're like, yeah, I was actually just in the States for pilot season.
So I guess first for people listening and watching, what is pilot? Could you say what pilot season is? And then what has been your experience of pilot season? I have never been, and I just romanticize it.
Yeah. So, a pilot season. So wait, are we? Wow, I blanked. This is gonna be really good. I'm like, am I explaining what pilot season is first, or just my experience of it?
Yeah. So you know what? Why don't I not ask you to do the work? I realized me asking you to say what pilot season is because I was like, oh my God, what if I explain it? And what if she's like, that's actually wrong? And that was my own fear. So I'm going to explain what it is as somebody who's never been. And then as someone who has been, you tell me what your experience is and please correct me. I'm already like, what your experiences of is. Okay, great. So for listeners and viewers, from an actor in Canada who has never been to pilot season, this is what it is. Pilot season is the time in the US, and I'm going to specifically say LA, when they cast all of the pilots, which are like the theoretically first episodes of new TV shows that they are hoping will then get picked up to actual TV shows. So someone will pitch a show to a network. They'll say, great, here's some money to make one episode. And they make the one episode. And let's say there's like 100. And then they go make those 101 episodes. And then the network decides, we'll make just 10 of these go through to be actual TV shows, and the other 90 go get sad and drink scotch. Is that that's right?
Yeah, that's it. Okay. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's also a time where then like pilot season's really busy for actors, hopefully, because it's when they're auditioning for all of those 100 pilots. It doesn't mean they're all going to get the TV shows, but you're auditioning for all the first episodes of potential TV shows.
So my experience of pilot season was I arrived and my agents were like, oh, there's no such thing as pilot season anymore. I was like, good. I, subletted my place, came all the way out, got this O1 for pilot season that doesn't exist anymore.
You even went, because that's what I was going to ask you. Like, so the O1 is the O1 visa, which is basically where you can go over to the States, and it's a visa you can get for like a special skill. So it's kind of the only one to get for acting. And then you can only, for everyone to understand, when you go over there on an O1 visa for acting, you can only get paid to act. You cannot go and like work as a waitress at a restaurant.
True.
And it's a lengthy and expensive process. So you went through that whole thing, got the O1 visa.
Yeah.
And I was like, it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. I'm like, it's so funny. I love that the visa is called Alien of Extraordinary Talent. That is what the visa is called. You are an alien of extraordinary talent. You have to prove why you are an extraordinary alien to go to the US.
Oh my God, add that to your resume. Just so you know, I'm an alien of extraordinary talent.
Yeah, I was like, that's really my claim to fame right now. The reason why pilot season doesn't exist really as much anymore is because of streamers. So it used to be that pilot season was, end of February, March, April, because of when networks were going to be releasing shows, right? So they want to do like that fall release kind of thing, or the summer release and these kinds of things. So that was the time of year when broadcasters were looking for shows because they have very specific release times in the year. But because actually a majority of buyers now are streamers, and streamers do not follow the same kind of schedule, pilot season is all year. And so it started spreading out. It wasn't like I was talking to friends in the business who were going like a couple years before me, and they're like, yeah, it used to be crazy. You'd go back to back doing tons of pilots. And, like, I could be saying this and maybe I'm just like not doing so well. Who knows?
No, but that makes total sense. It does make total sense that because of streaming, it's like we don't need to follow that schedule, the release schedule anymore.
Any time of year. So literally too, that comforted me, because then I stressed about being there at the right time. And to other actors, it's like actually being there at any time is okay now, because there are pilots going all the time. So if you're stressing, being like, oh my God, I have to go at this time, I've missed pilot season, don't worry, pilot season's all year round now because of the streamers. My experience was, I think I went in person. I probably went to like only 3 in-person auditions, but 2 out of the 3 I got callbacks in and like met the producers. And I went to Sony, they didn't hire me, but I went to Sony to to like meet actually like the heads of Sony, because they're like, who are you? We don't know who you are. And I was like, this is exciting.
Yeah.
And they couldn't hire me because my O1 wasn't the right kind of O1. And it was like, because sometimes here's the problem too with the O1 is they're cracking down on this a bit more, where they kind of really want you to have a green card, or they want to get you the O1 and there's not enough time. There's lots of things. The other thing too that I should tell any new actors out there is, if you're getting the O1 visa, it's only really for leads of shows. They won't hire you. You can't be hired for like a principal role on an O1. It has to be a lead of a show, because they have to prove to the government, everyone, that they couldn't find a single person who would fulfill this role. And if it's a principal role or an actor role, they can.
Yeah.
So that's just like for people to know that if you're going out there, be ready that it's going to be all lead roles, which is like, of course, that's what we want to do. The other thing to kind of like let people know, like, why is pilot season in America so exciting and why doesn't Canada have a pilot season, is because Canada doesn't do pilots. The US market and the Canadian market are incredibly different, because the US market also has studios. So when we think of like Warner Brothers, HBO, Fox, like any like Paramount, like any of the studios, Disney, like they are the ones who are making the pilots, not the broadcasters. They are making these pilots and then showing them to broadcasters, which means there's private funding. Everything in Canada is government funded. We work through grants, we work through everything like that. And so because we don't have studios, we don't do pilots. Instead, what we do is we develop. So we will develop 5 scripts and be in development forever, and then we'll greenlight an entire show. Versus they will do a pilot, and then the broadcasters will watch said pilots and be like, we want that one, that one, that one. So it's a very, very different ball game of how America and Canada works, and why pilot season is so coveted by Canadians to go out there, because at least in the US, you as an actor can participate in pilots that might not turn into shows, but you can. Whereas like in Canada, you can't participate in anything until it's greenlit for a show. So it means there's less opportunities here too for us to just have our shot at trying something.
Yeah. And getting that experience on professional sets also. Like you're kind of, you can be pursuing an acting career for years before you actually get on a professional set and see what that career actually is like, the one that you've been chasing. So even though in the States, if you're like, you know, okay, I acted in this pilot, but it didn't go anywhere. This pilot, it didn't go anywhere. At least you're acting on like a Warner Brothers set and you're getting to have that experience. And, you know, okay, next time now I know how to act with these 2 cameras here, or I know how to find my lighting, or all those things, which is like such important practice for the craft too.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I do wonder, part of me is like, I think there's more opportunity for people to try things in the US because of pilot season. But then at the same time, they are really trying to sell the show. So it's usually big names that are attached in some way. But it does make me think that there is more opportunity to give a shot, because it's just a pilot. In some ways, in certain things, maybe. Also, the US is very primed. They're always looking for the newest talent, whereas Canada tends to try to stick to the tried and true talent instead.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference. And
it feels a bit hesitant, like somebody, I feel like in the US, again, as somebody who's never been to pilot season, it feels like in the US, it's very much like, I want to be the next person. Like, I want to be the person who finds that next big star. I want to be that person. And in Canada, it feels a bit more like, I don't know, I think they're good, but like, do you think they're good? If you think they're good, then I'll think they're good. Like, there's a hesitancy. Yes. And so it's much, I think it's when it can be lower stakes, so you can kind of practice more here and get those reps in, and maybe it's lower stakes. But, you know, I guess there's a ton of like pros and cons to both.
There is a ton of pros and cons.
Industries.
I would say the big difference is the funding that makes that difference in business, because in the United States, entertainment is a business and it's privately funded. So there's less people. It's just everyone at Sony going, that's a smaller group than the government and like the broadcaster and everybody else. It's privately funded, so they can get more specific about what they want and take more risks, because they're a business, and a business is always looking to hit the new next thing. Whereas in Canada, if we're more government funded, if we're hitting a wider range of people, where a broadcaster has to think about, like, this has to make sense in Winnipeg and in Toronto and in Vancouver, because we have to fulfill that everyone's taxes paid for this. We have to do all of this. There's like a general wash of like, we need this to be broader, and a lot more people involved looking to fulfill a big broad spectrum versus something very specific where you have one or a couple heads at Sony who are like, no, we want to do this kind of thing. And who cares if it's only for Toronto? Like, because of the funding and the way our system works, you can't just be like, we'll only do a show just for Vancouver in the tiny, tiny town of this town.
Yeah. And only they'll understand.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. Yeah. It's like in Canada, we have like one big kitchen and everybody is the chef, and we all have to decide like what we're making. Whereas in the US, it's like, we're just going to have a shit ton of little mini specific fusion restaurants, and like everyone, and again, I guess pluses and minuses to both, but I think it's so important, so important, whether you're an actor, director, like any of that, to understand those differences, or just understand the market that you're working in so that you can play within that game. And I think it's really hard to find that, or it felt very hard throughout my life, like finding that information or finding reliable information. And you are just like a wealth of knowledge. Anytime I have listened to you speak, or like your online workshop or podcast you've been on, articles, like anything, you're such a wealth of knowledge, not only about the creative process, but like about this side, about this business side of the industry. And how did, I don't even know, like, how did you come to know all of these things? That feels like such a stupid question, because
no, it's not
like
a stupid question.
Experience, and you have a ton of experience. So yes, but like, where did you start to look for all this information?
Yeah, I mean, that's totally fair, because a lot of people can go through the same experiences and not pick up the same things. So that's a very valid question. I wonder the same question. I'm like, why do I? Maybe because I find it interesting. I think also from the pain of selling a show, of pitching and selling the show, I like really had to learn why my show was selling or wasn't selling, and how can I keep it going. And I just was like asking every person, being like, why is it going this way? And I'm just a person who's like, why? Tell me why. And I'm very interested. I guess I get to know producers a lot. And my father was a businessman. My father was a very good businessman. So I think it appeals to me to understand why it's happening. So I really, every show I've been on, I've really liked talking to the producers and people to be like, why is this happening? And what's going on here? And then also the trials and tribulations of like my show Second Gen, where it was just like, okay, if I like, we made that from scratch, having nothing in the industry, to like selling it. And you learn a lot about the grants and everything in the process of making Second Gen, and also my Sudden Master, which was a digital series. So that's kind of how I came to learn about everything that I know, I guess. I guess that's my best answer. That I my father was a businessman. I like business, and I just cried a lot while I was trying to sell my show.
Well, so in creating, and it can be Second Gen and or Sudden Master, like either or.
Yeah.
What do you think, what is the biggest misconception do you think people have about what it's like to make a TV show? And if it's for Sudden Gen, like making a digital series, either one.
Yeah, I think the mystique of like, oh my God, they just made this really fun internet web series and then it became a TV show. I was like, yeah. That's not how it went at all. And every time I hear someone say anything like that about like Broad City or anything, they're like, they just came up with this show and bam, it was a TV show. Like someone loved it so much, they turned it into a TV show. I think the amount of time people think it takes to make a show, it's much longer than anyone thinks. I think the process, like everyone thinks like you're just a nobody and then you just made the show. I was like, no, there was a lot of thought that went into it actually, and there was a lot of planning in terms of like, I guess like Second Gen. So when I make a show, when I make anything, if I'm going to be a producer on it or make it, I tend to try to think about where I want it to go and what I want it to do for me. I think a thing a lot of artists do, which is its own merit, but is that they make a piece of art and hope it finds an audience versus know where the audience is, where it needs to go, and how to get it there. So like people make a lot of great art, but it goes nowhere. Like they don't know where to put it, and they're like, oh, I'm done this thing, but now no one's seeing it, or I don't know where to put it. It's like we really specifically, like for both, when I made Sudden Master, I knew what was going on OMNI. I knew that it had to be half Mandarin, half English. I knew that it had to be cultural. And like with Second Gen, we knew that we were going for our like target audience was like people in their like late teens to late 20s, and people who grew up as second generation, like with immigrant families, or were like very close to immigrant people. So like we knew what our target audience was, and that meant how I pitched it as well. So it's not just like you just make a great piece of work and then someone discovers it and it's great. I was like, no. And it took a long time, like it, and even in the amount of time, probably 3 years for us to get Second Gen up off its feet and into its first season. And that's pretty fast, actually.
Yeah.
So I think that mystique, that's how I also feel when people talk about actors, where they're like, oh my God, they just saw him on this thing and they hired him. And I was like, no one said that he was also an actor for 7 years. Like, yeah, they picked out this waiter who like was a nobody, who had been acting probably for 10 years before that. Like, just this idea that like it just happens. I think it didn't just happen for both those things. That's what I would say.
Yeah, no, I similarly, when people say that, I always want to slide in and correct. Like, and it was I remember specifically it was happening a lot about Jennifer Lawrence. Like, oh, she came out of nowhere. I'm like, she was on a sitcom since she was 14. Like, it doesn't, that's not, what do you mean it came out of nowhere? Like, no, she didn't do one movie and then it was like, who's that girl? No.
Yeah, like she's never acted in her life.
Yeah. and especially because when she started, not when she started, but there was kind of like a whole kind of slew of like interviews with her that the interviewer just kept hitting like, oh, you've never taken an acting class. You've never taken it. And she was like, yeah. And they were painting this story like, oh, you've never acted. And I'm like, no, she didn't take a formal acting class because she was 14. Like her family moved her when she was a preteen to start like to go after this. So I agree, this whole and I think I get the fantasy, like even for people not in the industry, I think this fantasy that you could just be plucked out and, you know, like discovered at the mall, you know, and you're the next Tyra Banks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that idea resonates with like people's, you know, want to feel seen and validated and believe that they're special. And I'm also, but you don't have to have someone else pluck you out of a mall to tell you you're special. Pluck yourself out of a mall. Just decide you're special. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yes, agreed. Cause it's, and it's not, you know, maybe part of it is like, oh, wish I could be plucked out of a mall. But I think the bigger part of it is that it feels like then whatever process you're in and whatever work you're doing, if it's, you know, if you're in year 4 of trying to make your show happen, that narrative or people putting that on makes it think like, oh, well, it's not happening quick enough, so you should just stop. Oh, it should be easier.
Yes.
You're doing something wrong. And it's like, no, I'm just being patient and working hard and doing what I need to do every day to make this happen.
Yes. And I do find like, for me, actually, I find it more hopeful that like Jennifer Lawrence, I didn't know that like had been acting since she was 14. Cause it's like, oh, it could happen for you at any time then. Like you can, like for us actors, we're just going and going and going and going. Actually, it can happen. And then you can be an overnight success.
Yeah.
I'm doing quotation marks for people who aren't watching. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that could still happen. You know, people say to I've heard people say to Meryl Streep, like, why did you decide to like become famous in your like in your later career? She's like, I didn't decide to become famous then.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, it can still happen at any time. So that I do find comforting. And I do think you're right. I think sometimes it's a jealous thing of people being like, well, I wish it's a way to like, I sometimes feel like it's a way to like disregard someone's hard work.
Yes.
You're like, they're so lucky. And it's like, there's not a single person that I think it was just luck. I think luck is part of, I think there does need to be a certain aspect of timing. But if that person, I haven't met a person yet who was like, and I've met a couple, I know a couple actors who are kind of quite well established, and it has looked like it was luck, but I know exactly how hard they were working to get there. Like Simu Liu is a very good example where people are like, oh my God, he's in Marvel. It's like, Simu Liu has been gutting to be in Marvel the entire time I have known him, in the way that he created his
that
brand.
makes me even happier for him then.
Yeah, I was like, in his brand, his shirtless videos, everything about Simu was how to be a Marvel person. Like, I was like, there's never been a more focused person on how to be a Marvel superhero. So when people are like, oh, it just happened, I'm like, no,
it took years. It took years of specific crafting. Oh my God. Speaking of Simu, I have this TikTok saved of him. He did like a dance with like a group for like Reebok, Adidas, something.
Oh yeah, I feel like I've seen it.
Samantha, one of the most attractive things I've ever seen in my entire life. I was like, this needs to be saved anyway, but like, no surprise. Like, I'm not the first or the 100,000th person to say that he's attractive. But anyway, was literally watching it last night, I think.
Yeah,
again.
Totally. Yeah.
But I think it's like, yeah, it's so important you say that, because even with, you know, yes, like all of his acting or like all of his accolades, everything that he's putting in, it's also like you were saying, he had that specific goal in mind.
Yeah,
he's tailoring his brand in like in an authentic way of, or just telling the world, hey, this is what I want. I'm just putting it out there. This is what I want. I'm going to post a topless photo because I want to be in Marvel. So I'm going to show you that I have what it takes to be in Marvel.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it takes years. It really does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. So that I think that misconception is definitely like every year. I'm actually like dreading now. So I've been developing a show for years. It's like it can be a running joke sometimes. And every Christmas,
are you in like development hell, like in that way? Like
a little bit. And it's like changed from like, now we're developing it in a different country than we were originally developing it. Or like it's changed. Like what is going? Yes. So, and we've just kind of gone along with it. And we're like, great, we'll adapt. Let's go. Yes, we want to keep doing this. But every kind of like Christmas comes around, I'm like, oh, I'm going to gather with family and they're going to ask, and I'm going to have to give a reason as to why we're still getting it made. Anyway, so I hear you of like the mystique part of it. I'm like, let's get that to go away. Every time a story comes out of like, it took 17 years to make Avatar, I want to like send it as a newsletter everywhere. Yes, like, and he had money and like clout and like all of it. And it took that long. It takes, like, Seth Rogen aged out of his own script and he had to get Jonah Hill to play it. Like, you know, anyway. So we gotta all remember that. Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious in general, when you are creating your own work, speaking of creating your own work, because it takes so long, takes years, it might start out as an idea of like, oh, you know what? I want to make a TV show called Second Gen. Here's what it's going to be about. Here's going to be like the true heart of the show. This is why I want to make it, why it's important. Here's my target audience. Fabulous. To find a creative partner, and whether that be like a co-writer, a co-creator, you're the writer, they're the producer, whatever it is, but this person or a couple people that you are essentially going to work with for who knows how long. Like, you could end up seeing this person more than some family members. This could be a decade-long endeavor. And yet sometimes you're meeting people on a set who you've known for maybe a month and you're like, do you want to create something together? It's a weird, you kind of have to like roll with the dice sometimes. So for yourself personally, how do you go about choosing like the right creative partner for yourself?
Yeah, I think, so for Amanda and I, it was originally Amanda wrote the original quote unquote pilot or like script that we shot. And then I was producing it and then like co-directing it. And then we were both going to be in it. So originally it melded because we both had different roles we wanted to do in what was happening. And I think that's actually really important. I'm a burp. Great. And you can keep that in. People burp.
I don't even think I heard it, Samantha. I don't even think I heard it. I was going to say like, oh, you did a great silent burp. I tried to silent burp earlier, if that makes you feel any better. And I'm like, oh, you're going to have to edit that out if I hear it.
Yeah. So, I think that's like really key in a relationship, is that you complement each other. that you both like doing different things, or maybe you both like doing all the things, but at a certain point in the relationship, it's really helpful to talk about who does what and stuff like that. And that's something Amanda and I had to learn, and sometimes things we weren't successful at in knowing who does what and who does this and that. And that is something I bring into new relationships, where it's like, okay, let's be really clear about who does what and who doesn't do what and stuff like that. Because honestly, it's two humans working together, and what happens is you can get really insecure.
Yeah.
That like, oh, this person's really good at this thing, I should also do that thing, because they're carrying so much of the weight doing this thing, and I'm not as good as it, so I'm going to try and do it. And then you try and do it, but you're not as good at it, and you're embarrassed. And you're like, oh, if we had just had the conversation that you like doing this thing, you're better at it, and I am better at this thing, then I don't need to feel insecure that I'm not as good at you at this thing. You don't need to feel insecure that I'm not as good at you at that thing. That was like a conversation Amanda and I had actually way later in our like creative relationship, because we were both feeling inferior to each other in different ways.
Aww.
And so like, I think that's like such a good conversation I take now into partnerships, to be like, what do you like doing? What do you hate doing? What do you think you're good at? What do you think you're bad at? And then I'll tell you what I think I'm good at and what I think I'm bad at. And then let's kind of figure out a system so that we know that we're in equal partnership here. We know that that's happening.
Yeah.
And really, really lay that out. So that's kind of how I navigate a partnership, and how I pick a partner is I really do look for someone now in new partnerships who do things that I don't do, or that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
That I don't like doing.
Yeah.
Because that's the best way to go for me, that I like. Yeah.
I love that you're saying that. I think like earlier on in my acting career, when I wanted to create things, I went about it more as like, oh, I want to create it with friends that I love their sense of humor, that I love what they bring to the table. And I still feel that way. But I kind of over the years realized like, oh, when you're creating something though, it's different. It's different, like bringing somebody on set to act in a specific role, but like to create something alongside somebody, it's kind of like you can be really good friends with someone, but it doesn't mean that you two would jive well as roommates. And it's the same thing I find with that. And one, I love those questions. I'm using all of those questions that you just said, all of those talking points. And one thing actually that I feel like with my writing partners, I learned way too late. So with this show, it's 3 of us and all of us write it together. And is asking, how do you like to hear feedback? Like, what is your style in hearing feedback? Because it was way too late in the process that I realized I'm giving feedback how I would want to receive it. I'm giving love how I would want to feel love. And it's not landing in them in the same way. They need different, like, and there's just different styles. For example, I assume that if you didn't put a note on it, you like it. If it's something that you love and you don't want it to leave a script or a pitch deck or whatever, then I assume you'll flag it and say, I love this. Don't cut this out or whatever. But I don't need to know what you like about it. I just assume if you didn't put a note, you don't like it. And I love notes. I love getting notes. I see them as like a show of care that you want to help me make it better, and you're collaborating with me in a way to make it better. And
that's
I learned
such
one
a
of
good
my
attitude. Yeah.
I also as an actor, like I love getting directed. Like my favorite part is like, oh, direct me, and then I want to do that, you know? So but sometimes that's not, you know, one of my writing partners was like, I feel like you just hate everything I'm doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? Let's unpack this. It's so opposite to that. And I realized they want to know what I like. They want to hear good job. They want like a good job sandwich, like good job. Here's what I would change, but you're doing great. And it doesn't matter if I disagree with that or like disagree. It doesn't matter if I don't need that. That's what they need. And that was another kind of question or conversation piece that I wish we had years ago. It would have been so much easier and more efficient.
Yeah. Do you find that you're different in how you like your feedback in acting versus how you like your feedback in writing, or is it the same?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think it's the same, except I think in acting, I don't assume that if you haven't said something, you like it. In writing, if you haven't put a note, I think you want me to keep it. In acting, I will really, if you give me a note, I'll really lean into that. If you say, okay, it was great, I just want to tweak this and this, great, no problem. I can roll with that. But if you say, I'm kind of thinking more of this vibe, I love to really lean into that vibe and really go with that. So I think with acting, it's more helpful for me to know, what do you want me to keep? Because I'm happy to throw it all out and go. Yeah.
And do you, because I'm asking you, because I'm like, as you're talking, like analyzing how I feel, and I will totally share.
Yeah.
I was like, do you feel more, is your inner confidence or your inner something different between acting and writing? Like, is there one that you're like, oh, I feel more sure of myself in this way, or I feel more something in a certain way between the two as well?
Yeah. It's interesting because I feel I hate the sentence I'm about to say, but
I
it's
love this.
honest.
No, I love it.
Great.
Tell me.
Okay. Hi, Samantha, who I admire and look up to. I feel inferior in most areas of my life, like most things in my life. And with acting, it's actually one of the things that when I'm like, oh my God, should I just give up? What's the point? It keeps me going. Because with acting, it's not even that I have an inner confidence. It's that I know I have like a set confidence in that I will get better. I know I will get better. I want to get better. And I don't have an ego, not an ego, like an insecurity trigger with acting.
Yes.
I know that it's where I need to be. So I don't care if I'm not good enough yet. I just want to keep getting better.
Yes. Yeah.
So I guess when I get feedback, I don't often, unless it's like about my body, like, you know what I mean? Unless
yes. Yeah. Like, we'll talk about being woman.
Yeah. So if it's like a respectful, legit critique or a direction, I don't take it personally. I don't hear, Amanda, you did it wrong, do it this way. I hear, oh, you have all this amazing clay. Like, what if we molded it this way? Could you try molding it this way? That's how I hear it. Yeah. I have the potential to do their direction. That's why they're giving it to me, and they see that in me. With writing, I have such confidence in my ability for structure and like an editing eye. I have a very like producer mind with it. But I will sometimes get insecure about like the coming up with a million ideas or or punching up the jokes. But if you need it to like tie in thematically, if you need it to like, oh, and this is also a metaphor for something you set up in act one, like if you need it to, this isn't hitting hard enough because it's not escalating, like I am your girl, like the bones, I got it. So the meat on top and the sprinkles that are so valid, I'm not saying they're like just little sprinkles, they're amazing.
Yeah.
I think when I get notes on those, it's a little, it could potentially be a little bit more hit my heart a little bit. What about you? What about you when you get feedback on like writing versus acting? It could be even versus like directing if a producer.
Yeah. I so gives you feedback. Appreciate your openness and vulnerability to share with that. I thought it was really nice because I'll tell you, I'm terrified of writing. I feel so terrible about my writing. I have so much inferiority complex around my writing, and like it's not the case with acting. That's why I was asking you the difference between you. So like for me, I'm the same with acting. I'm like, I feel, and I'm practicing saying this. I'm like, don't say that, but it's very like female. It's very person of color to like not be like, I'm good at this. But I do feel like I am a good actor. I'm not going to be like, I'm the best actor, I'm a great actor, but I do feel like I can say I'm a good actor. And so, when I get feedback as an actor, because I know that to be true, I know that I should be here. I don't hear, when I get a note, I don't hear you're a bad actor and therefore you got it wrong, yada, yada. I hear, hey, you're great. So I know you can get this right if I give you this. That's what I hear. I hear like, you're awesome. I'm going to give you this note because I know you can do it. Like, I love notes as an actor. I hope for them. Right. Yeah. And I do. And I assume that if they move on and they haven't talked to me, that it was good. Like, because I'm like, they'll tell me, although that took a while. That took being on set for a while to just be like, okay. They didn't say anything because that happens and that does suck as an actor, and being behind camera has helped me kind of be more like, oh, okay, if they don't talk to you, they're just busy and they like it. So as an actor, I feel okay when I get notes. I love them. I feel collaborative. And it's taken me a long time to even get more collaborative as an actor and ask for things and stuff like that now. But as a writer, oh my gosh, because I feel inferior, like when I get notes and I I'm working on it in terms of like, I get notes and I'm like, I immediately hear you're a bad writer and that's why you did this. And I know myself enough to be like, okay, that's going to be my first reaction. We'll take a deep breath and then we'll know that's not what's happening. Yada, yada. But my first reaction is, you are horrible. Like I need the compliment sandwich right now as a writer, because I'm like, I'm still, and it's so funny to be like, I'm a baby because I've written things. But it's interesting to me because I was like, wow, why can't I apply the same thing? And it might be the amount of experience. I don't know, but I was also a little bit dyslexic as a kid. So English and stuff was hard for me. I just thought I was a bad writer because I can't spell to save my life or grammar. Can't do it. And so I thought that meant that I was a bad writer. And I had a great English teacher who was like, writing is about ideas. It's not about those things. But sometimes people will pick on me. I think, I don't know why, but like if someone wants to pick on you, they'll be like, oh, you spelled this wrong. And I'll be like, I know.
Yeah. You know what though,
rough.
Samantha, if you get that note, it's because they couldn't find much else.
Yes. And I realized
it's actually
too.
their insecurity a little bit as an editor or as a whatever person giving feedback.
Yeah.
And I totally hear you. And even when you're like, oh, I still feels like such a baby as a writer, but even though I've written stuff, it might be that your skill is a teenager adult and just the confidence is a baby still. And like, that's, it's
totally.
It's interesting because I actually think too, like I have been, when I write something on my own, it is actually so different. I'm realizing because I'm so like tunnel vision in this, like writing the show right now, which is with two other people. It feels like that's the only thing I've like, that's the only writing I ever have and ever will do.
Yeah.
But when I write on my own, it is like, I would rather get hit by a bus than have to show anybody. Like it's so inferiority.
You want to throw up.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
It's funny because like with directing, I managed to avoid the fear because I can really focus on other people with directing. Like when I'm directing, if I get scared, I just really think about my team, how I want to take care of them, how I care about the actor. So I can put all of the focus off of myself. So even if I'm afraid, I'm like, well, you have to push through this for the actor, or you have to push through this for this. So I can kind of like move through it. And I think I've done enough leadership roles that even when someone criticizes me as a leader, as a director, like, okay, I don't, like either it's this constructive criticism that we can do to make the team better, or are you just mad at me? That's fine, whatever. Like,
right. Yeah, you're just angry, you're just annoyed, you're hungry, you're tired, you got in a fight with your partner, whatever. Yeah,
exactly. The best advice I was given and this is when I was producing, but I still hold it with directing. Something like had gone really wrong in our early, in that first pilot of Second Gen that we made. And again, we made a pilot in Canada, not knowing Canada didn't have a pilot season. Great. Yeah. So when all to the Canadians who are making pilots, that doesn't exist, guys. But you can have a proof of concept and that is helpful, but you don't need to make a full 22-minute. Don't stretch your dime that way is what I would say to new creators in that way. But anyway, someone said to me, listen, it's not your fault, but it is your problem. And that is what I take most of the time when people get mad at me if I'm like directing, because everyone's going to get mad at you. If you're producing, if more people are going to get mad at you. But if you're directing, I'm like, okay, this is not my fault, but it is my problem to make sure my team feels supported. So that's kind of how I redirect it. But when you're writing, you're alone.
Yeah.
You're alone and you're like pulling out your inner things. And it's so I was going to say it's so great, but it's so terrifying. I feel like I just want to be so open about that because I write, because I have had things produced and made that I was like, hey guys, it's terrifying for me. I think lots of people are like, it's so great. And I keep watching other people being like, it's so great. And I'm like, really? I feel like most of my writing process is how to avoid fear. Like most of my process is like, how do I do this in a way? Usually most of the time I'm like, okay, I'm doing a garbage draft. Okay, I'm doing another thing. I just take as much pressure as I can off of myself. And then I
literally just said today, I was like, okay, I'm going to take this script. I'm just going to write we literally use the word, I'm going to write a garbage first draft. And they're like, absolutely. I'm like, it's going to be garbage. They're like, great. Like, yes, I have a short film script I wrote. I don't even know how long ago, truly 8 years. I don't know. Sitting in a folder thing on my desk here. I'll never show anybody, I don't think. Like it's wild. Like And I was trying to think, even, first of all, I love that advice that it's not your fault, but it is your problem, like, to solve, essentially. I was even thinking, like, God, I could take that into my romantic relationship. Like, not that it's my problem to solve, but like, it might not be my fault now, but I want this to be my problem and your problem, or whatever, with anybody, with friends, anything. But I was trying to think, like, when you're writing, it does just suck. And even reading, like, why does it suck? I'm just like, why do we want to do it? Like, so many, and even, reading so many people that I look up to, Amy Poehler, so many people say, like, writing sucks. Like, people are lying, writing sucks. Or
like, why does everyone find this so joyful?
Yeah, why are we doing this? And it's also by choice. Like, we are choosing to be an artist. You're choosing to do that. I mean, unless it's like the family business and you're like, oh, I guess I have to. But I don't think there's many. It's not my family's not. So I don't know how to I don't know where the difference is, because I don't know, like, theoretically why writing feels more vulnerable to me than acting. Like, I don't actually know why. When I'm writing, I'm alone. It's just me. Why is that scarier, or why am I judging it so much harder than when I'm in front of a bunch of people and I'm acting? Do you need that adrenaline, like that fear, being with a bunch of people to, like, get you out of your head? Like, I don't really know.
Well, I feel like if I was to get, this is fun. Let's unpack this myself.
Why is it torture? Why is writing torture with Amanda and Samantha? Let's figure this out with our scotch.
Well, I feel like with acting, even if I bare my heart and soul on camera, the rule is, when you say cut, it was all fake. Even if it was real, I get to be like, that was fake.
Yeah, that was
not me. That wasn't me. That was someone else's words. There's a rule.
That was Jen. That was Zoe. That was Alex. Whatever. That was someone else. Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
It's like, I decided to talk about this terrible breakup I had because it was written on the page, not because I was going to talk about it. Whereas, like, if I write about a terrible breakup on a page, everyone's like, ooh, like anything I write. That's how I feel, at least. Like, anything I write, if it's good, then it's personal. And I'm like, oh, fuck, they know. Like, they know.
Oh my God, Samantha, that's such a... Oh my God. I would write things and then never want to show anyone, because I would think, I don't want them to think that I feel that way, or to know that I feel that way.
I feel that way.
Yeah, it is. Or even just working out things about yourself, and you have different characters, and it's like, am I essentially broadcasting a therapy session, or like scanning my diary to the internet? Because you're right, as a character, growing up, I had a hard time, like, expressing my own emotions. Like, I was always worried it would hurt other people's feelings, or I couldn't take it back, or whatever. And I wonder sometimes, not to, like, pathologize my love of acting. It can just be a good thing that's not, like, born out of trauma or whatever,
we're all traumatized. It's fine.
Yeah. But, like, if it's, I would imagine, theoretically, if I was a case study, that, like, okay, well, then it makes sense that I loved acting, because it was a safe space to be angry, or to be, especially as, like, a girl who, again, talking about, like, conditioned to, like, don't be angry, don't be emotional, blah, blah, blah. It was a safe space to do it. And not only was it safe, but it also was, like, applauded. Like, great.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Everyone's like, wow, you really cried and screamed. It's like, Anne Carson has this incredible, like, little write-up she did, where she talks about how actors are called actors because they act for the audience. So they were specifically talking about Greek tragedy, how, like, we go through these huge emotions in life, but because of society, there are good reasons for it. We cannot rip out our own eyes. We cannot murder our brother, and we cannot, like, just, like, scream and wail, but we desire to, and we need to. So therefore, actors act for you. They take your needs and desires and they do it for you. They do the service of acting for the audience and being the conduit for people. So literally, it makes sense that, like, why we choose to be actors, because it's like, we all need this to get this out, so let's get it out. And in that way. And it's always, I don't know, the service of acting then just, like, hits true to me in that way. And that's definitely why I started acting. I wanted a safe place to get out a lot of my emotions. for sure. And in the beginning, you think it's about hiding who you are and stuff. And then later you realize it's about being who you are.
Yeah.
You're like, oh no.
You're like, oh, that was a trick. Tablecloth pulled out. Damn it.
Yeah.
I was running away from that. Yeah.
Exactly. And then with writing, I feel like I heard someone say this, and it's something I'm striving to do even more so now, with newer stuff, which is hard, which is like, they talked about like, they knew that they had done good writing if it was so personal that they were embarrassed to show it. Like,
but like, what? Like, first of all, I so agree. And then secondly, it's like, why are we torturing ourselves? Why am I choosing? But it's like, I don't want to do anything else. And it's like, I do think,
self-protection is good. Like,
yes, of course.
Also the whole idea of like, we're doing self-exploration. We're not doing self-mutilation here. And like, I think it's like, you can talk about something deeply personal about, but be talking about two different aliens who are talking to each other on another planet.
Yeah.
Like,
who have exceptional talent. Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be like, only I probably know. I'm telling myself to make myself feel better. Only I probably know how deeply personal it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and especially I think it's hard too, because for both of us, creating came out of, at least in part, out of like a way to create acting opportunities for ourselves. So it's not like maybe we're writing stories about like a two adults, two seniors. I don't know, whatever. We're writing it for like, we're going to play that character. So it feels even more like, okay, I'm going to write the words, then I'm going to say the words, and it's going to be me, and we're going to call cut, and it's going to be fake. But then someone's going to come and ask me about the story because it's my story. So it's all, I think all of those layers also complicate it as well.
Yeah. And that's when having a partner is helpful, because Amanda and I used to do this all the time. We would be like, oh, no, that's not me. That's Amanda's thing. Yeah. That's not me. That's Sam's thing. Like that really helps, because you're like, who knows whose thing it is? Like, in terms of that. But I would argue that even people who are writing about aliens are deeply personalizing it. I don't think anyone.
Yes, I totally agree. No, I totally agree. I think that I guess I just think maybe they have the added benefit of, if they write it about two aliens, they could hope that maybe people don't know which one is their feelings.
Yes, totally. There is an added stakes to when your face is also on it.
Yeah.
Because there's a new thing now, I think, of like, especially they like actor creators now, of like the authenticity of it. Like, we want to know that this is your true story. Yeah. And like, especially, we want to know that like the face behind the words is like really related to it. So it actually, part of the story is that it's real and it's your story and it's authentic. And that's like that's a whole new other thing to navigate, because those people are still characters. Like, at the end of the day, they are still characters in some ways. I am doing a heightened version of myself, or one side of myself, which may be hard for people to understand sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. The whiskey's hitting my brain now.
Well, and just for safety, just like you said, boundary safety, I think that even actors who are telling their quote unquote authentic, it is authentic, but like you said, a certain side or a feeling I'm having about a breakup, I'm going to lean into that feeling and make that like 80% of this character's drive, versus maybe I feel like it's 10% or whatever. We need those, not even like, actors are entitled to those boundaries. They are entitled to that safety of that, like, distancing the character from yourself enough of a way that it's not a documentary. Like, this is a scripted, and I want to talk to you about your directing. Okay. So I was just like, I want to make sure, because actually I was thinking about this when we were talking about creating for acting, since I was reading articles about you saying like you started that actually for second gen, meeting a man and stuff. It was like, for an indie horror film, you both were like actually locked in the trunk of a car, and you were like, this has got to change. Like, just, when the acting roles you were getting, you're like, I want something more nuanced and like me and reflective of a full human being. And so creating projects so that you could tell the story, but also give yourself acting opportunities. And now that you've really dived into directing, I'm wondering, now when you're creating projects, are you keeping in mind to have acting opportunities for yourself, or is it directing opportunities for yourself more so now, or both? I guess
that's such a great question, because it is because it is a dilemma that I'm in, or like an interesting thing to navigate now. Because it's true. Like now when I'm writing or creating a project, I'm like, do I want to be the actor or do I want to be the director?
Yeah.
And I could be both, but I've done that. Like on Second Gen, I was like lead actor and director for half of season 3, and it killed me. It's also very difficult. It's just really hard because you don't get to see what's happening all the time. Like when I directed on Second Gen and I was in every scene, I set up all the shots. I did everything like pre-watching the shots. But at the end of the day, there's a little bit of magic when you're behind the camera watching the shot where you're like, "Ooh, this would be great. That would be great." And you don't get to see that when you're on the camera. So for me right now, I do feel like I want to pick between acting or directing. That being said, though, I remember Ewan McGregor. I went to a TIFF talk with him, and he had done his directing debut, and he was the lead in his movie. And the one weird thing though about acting and directing is like, you know, when you're in a scene and you're like, oh shoot, like, or I guess when you're directing a scene and you're like, oh, I wish the pace was different or something like that. When you're in the scene, you can kind of control it. You can be like, okay, I need this pace to be faster. I will make the scene faster. Like you can control it a little bit. So that is helpful. Like you're literally in there being like, I need this to happen. I will do it.
It's like even more efficient directing. You don't have to give the direction. You can just do the direction in the moment. I would never have thought of that. That's so interesting.
Yeah, it is funny, but then there's so many more downsides to not be able to see it. So I think most of the time now what I'm doing, because I am trying to grow my direct, like right now in creation, I'm gearing more towards directing, but I want to do a Taika Waititi where I always give myself a small role to act in, just to remind people that I'm an actor as well.
Totally.
Because I was like, when I look at people's careers that I really like, I look at Taika Waititi, I look at Lin-Manuel Miranda, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, where I'm like, okay, they are creators and actors. Like you're equally happy to see them in something and that they created something. So I'm like, how did they do that? How did they make me love both? And all of Taika's stuff, he makes an appearance in some way. Some small way. So that's kind of the way that I'm trying to do it, is like, I don't want to fully leave acting. So I just want to write myself a good small role where I can act in it, show my face, and then direct the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And there can be such freedom in that, of writing, like, you know, oh, it's this fun, wild character. Maybe you don't want to play for a whole season. Maybe you don't want to play for a whole feature, but it would be fun to play it for a couple scenes or one scene. And then you're also, just for your own love of acting, you're getting to do that as well. I think that's so wonderful. Well, I think one thing, and actually I just spoke with director and cinematographer Jay Stevens. I don't know if you know them, but on an episode where we were just talking about directing for TV versus directing for film, and that what a lot of people don't know is that with a film, a director will direct the whole film. But with TV shows, and of course, I'm not telling you this, Samantha, but with TV shows, they'll have different directors for each episode. Like oftentimes a director will only direct one episode in the season. Sometimes they might pop in for a couple episodes, but you know, very often you're popping in and you're doing one episode. So it can be, it's a very different experience. And that's why, and actually you reminded me of this quote in a podcast that you talked about. That's why they say that TV is a writer's medium, that like they're getting kind of more of a say in the story and how it's told. And that film is a director's medium, because they're really getting to craft that. So I have never pitched myself to direct on a TV show or on a series or anything. And I'm so curious, what is the process like? Like, what are the steps like in pitching yourself to potentially direct on a TV show, on an episode of a TV show?
So mostly what you do is you're sitting down, you watch the show. You watch the show, and then talk about like what you would do, like what you see, what you liked about it, and what you would do if you were directing on it. It was a funny thing, because I also wondered this too. I was like, this is the first time I've pitched to direct on someone else's show, especially like when like it's an established show with already an aesthetic. So then it becomes like like they ask me like, what would you bring to the show? Because you can't totally change the aesthetic of a show.
No,
So
or
it's
even the
like-
tone, or you can't fully change the characters. You know, you need to work within the world of the show. And then, of course, but then they're still
Yeah.
asking you, well, what are you uniquely going to bring to the table? And it's like,
Yeah, so
nothing.
I
I'm
try
going
to
to keep
think
it the
of-
same for you.
I'm gonna keep it exactly the same.
Yeah. It's gonna be exactly the
so
same. Yeah.
I try to pick out like my favorite things that I liked about it and what my version of that would be, things that I think the show does well that I could help bring out. I mean, often I talk because I'm particularly connected to actors, like how I feel like I can really get like comedy and dialogue to pop off the page, and I can do it quickly. And like certain scenes, like I got asked a really great question in an interview once of like, what's something you would do different in an episode that you saw?
Oh,
And I was like, that's a great question. And like,
yeah.
that's really awesome to talk about. Like, I saw this and I thought it was great, but here's what I would have done. Like, I think that's a really interesting thing that I would take in. It was very funny. Like in one of my interviews, they're like, well, you did a great job interviewing yourself. like I just I come in guns blazing, be like, here's what I do. Here's what I'm good at. This is what I need to do.
In the end, they like introduce themselves and they're like, great job interviewing yourself. You got, let us know if you hired yourself. Like, let us know if you got the job.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, what was it like for directing Lady Ada's Secret Society? Because you directed the whole series, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't a show that already that it was the first season. So like you didn't have any show to already watch. And you were going to do the whole thing. So it's not even like you could kind of research what other directors are they interviewing? What are they going for? Like, what was that process like?
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite process, right? Like I feel like that's what the director wants, right? Because then you have a say in the actual look of the show.
Totally.
And so that was a conversation with Shannon Fuster, who is the creator, to be like, okay, I'm seeing, because her script is very heightened. It has like a very heightened, it's about girls playing pranks using coding and technology with a secret clubhouse. And I was very inspired by Matilda, like a Roald Dahl Matilda kind of thing. They also like Shannon and Andrew, who was a cinematographer, they really loved a series of Unfortunate Events, how like that was shot as well. And so I looked at that. Obviously, if anyone watches Lady Ada's Secret Society, I love Wes Anderson a lot as well. So it was a choice of, it was so great because I'm like, oh, we get to make a real choice about this show, which was the aesthetic is very Wes Anderson in terms of like, we're using the full picture. We're using the full thing. So like when you look at a screen, sometimes you can see, and it makes it very beautiful where like the background is kind of blurred out and you're just looking at the person in front. But like in something like Wes Anderson, where you're like, oh, I want to see everything. I wanted to see the symmetry of everything. That's what I want to see. That was what we planned to do, because we also knew we were going to have a set that was really beautiful. We had the Old Mill in Toronto. So it's like, great, like let's use this set. And then let's also do to make it feel even a little bit more heightened, is you get a really wide angle lens and then you make a close up with it. And it kind of creates just a slightly warped viewpoint that makes it feel like the Wes Anderson things, like Matilda, where there's just a bit of a warping to it that it feels a bit more cartoonish. And I did a lot of, this might come from my theater background, I did a lot of tableaus. Like I really wanted to be like, all right, I want you in the front, you in the back, you doing this, because I'm used to painting a picture with like just what's on stage. And on top of that, for time wise, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do a ton of close-ups. And so I rely as a director on my actors and being able to direct my actors. So sometimes, a lot of times, if I'm running out of time, or even if I'm not running out of time and I just really love the banter that's going on, I want a good shot where I see all the actors. And I want there to be interesting blocking for them. So like that really dictates how I create the picture in my show. So that was a big thing with Lady Ada's, is that we wanted to create a heightened world, and we did that by using a lot of wide angle lenses, a lot of painting in the whole background and picture, and then a lot of like kind of like these paintings, like this look of how things were going to look in a certain way that kind of is very Matilda-esque.
It's such an amazing like combination, even when you're talking about pitching for the shows or like how you wanted to create the vibe and the world of Lady Ada's. Like, it's such a wonderful combination of creative and logistical, of like, if I'm short on time, or like I know that I can get the dialogue to pop quickly. Like, I love that. I think that is such a specifically director's vision, and it's just really it's really cool. I find so often I'm split. Like, if I'm thinking producer brain, then I'm thinking of the logistics. And if I'm thinking writer brain or actor, I'm thinking more of the creative. And it's so fun to hear the world where they like all kind of swirl together. Am I having to, like, clearly I have been having a bit of my drink too. I'm like, they just swirl together and it's like this beautiful monologue with an Excel spreadsheet and I'm just in love. Like,
totally. No, but that's why I actually really have found that I love directing, and why I partly have been like, oh, everything has led to this, because I get to use my knowledge of acting, writing, and producing to be a good director. Like, oh, it all comes together to make me a better director. Like, it makes me a better actor too, and a better writer and producer to know all the things. But for sure, I found that it's nice. It's where everything really melts together for me.
Yeah. Oh my God, I could hear you talk about it forever. Oh my God, I love that. Okay. So to end off our episode, I'm calling them rapid fire questions. I like to do rapid fire questions, but they're not fast. I hate the word rapid, and now I just I need to stick to it for the season. Okay. But it's essentially like a collection of questions that don't follow a theme together. They're just like, I would love to ask Samantha this. Oh, I'd like to ask her this too. So,
oh, that's super fun. Do you want me to try and keep them short and succinct so they feel kind of rapid fiery?
Oh God, I love you. Like that you're asking me that. It's just so wonderful. I want you to give the answer that you would love. And also, no, I don't need them to be succinct. No. You give whatever answer you would like. Yeah. I was about to give you a non-direction of like, you give me and I'm like, no, that's not good direction. You just answer them like they're normal questions, and just know that the transitions between them, there is going to be lacking. There's going to be no transition between them.
Okay, cool. I will try to, in the effort of rapid fire, though, not think about it too much. I'll say like the
that's
first
great.
thing that comes out.
Okay, that's great. Yes, the only thing that I want to be quick is between the end of the question and your answer. Like no,
like processing. This is what I think.
Yeah. And you're like, I don't think I should say that. Whatever. Yeah. Okay, so my first one for you is, I know you are a huge fan of musical theater.
Yeah.
And so if you could only watch one musical for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Oh no, Hamilton. That was the first thing that came to my mind. Yeah, that was the first one that came to my mind. I also love Hadestown as a newer one.
Oh, okay. All right. You know what? I'll let you watch both of them for the rest of your life since you answered so quickly.
Okay.
You get a reward. You are, and again, I'm not saying this for you, but for listeners and viewers, you are a trained martial artist, and your family has a long-standing tradition and history in the martial arts, which was cool to learn about in my oh, thank you. Well, honestly, it was such a pleasure to learn about in my research. It was so cool. I could ask you an hour long just about that. What is one of the biggest gifts that martial arts has given you?
Discipline is the first thing. That was the first thought in my mind. I was like, is that true, Sam? I don't know. The actual, okay. But like, I was like, I just said the word discipline, but I was also like, no.
I know, I could see it in your face, like, discipline? Question mark in my face?
Yeah, no, actually, I think my martial arts actually is something that brought me back to my culture. A lot more. Before that, when I was a kid, I was pretty actually resistant. I was like, I don't want to be Chinese. I was just like really like, it was my rebellion against my parents. And then when I found martial arts, which martial arts has run in my family, I was like, wait, this is pretty cool. Everyone wants to do martial arts, and I have the benefit of like being related to a family and being very close to the martial arts family. And that got me back into the traditions of my culture. So that's something I really appreciated. And then there is and the way that like an old-fashioned martial arts school does, it's not structured. It's not like, here's this lesson and here's this lesson. Like, you learn what you need to learn when you're supposed to learn it, and the Sifu decides when you're ready to learn the next bit. And it's very intuitive. And it's very intuitive in also listening to the body and what it needs to do. And so like it really helps me trust something other than my mind.
Oh, which you're using here in the rapid fire questions.
There we go.
So I guess discipline was the right answer, because that's what you had learned, that you just have to go with your gut and trust your gut and yes. Oh, wow. That is truly, I actually think that in the years of me in therapy, like that is one of the main things that I have been like not working on, I should say, but that's one of the huge gifts is like hearing. I came into therapy being like, I don't have a gut. I don't have, when people say listen to your gut, she's gone. I've ignored her for so long. She doesn't even whisper anymore. She's reading a book in a cave. Like she doesn't talk to me. So help me get her back. Like what do I do? So I'm just sharing that because truly I think that gift is something that like cannot be underestimated. That is such an incredible gift.
Totally.
To be given. So
totally. And I think therapy is the best. Everyone should do it.
Please do it. I feel like, speaking of government funding.
Yeah. Agreed.
Let's fund that, please. Everybody. It would make it would make everything better. Economy, if you want to be making money, economy, everything would be so much better. Which actor? So I should preface, I feel like this answer, there's going to be a million in your brain. And so what is one of the many, many actors that you would love to get to direct one day?
Wow, that's not where I thought it was going.
Oh,
because my brain was already trying to think of lots of things. I thought you were going to ask which actor do I like, or a career do I like, but who do I want to get to direct?
No, Miss Director. Yeah. Also, sometimes I preamble for a fucking hour. So yeah, no wonder your brain was like, where are we?
No, it was just cheating. It was cheating. It wasn't it wasn't allowed.
You to your martial arts. You don't need that. You don't need to cheat.
It's so funny. Okay, so my brain actually goes immediately to when first to like Taika Waititi, Ryan Reynolds, like creators, because I'd like to have the collaboration of creation with them. I guess that's true. Like I was like, yeah, because I'm also an actor creator, so I'd love to see how they navigate being an actor creator on the other side of it. And so that's something that is really interesting to me. I want collaboration. But then at the same time, like I also, then the next person that came out was Lupita. Oh gosh, no, how do I pronounce her last name?
Nyong'o?
Yeah.
No. Am I saying it right now? Wait,
no,
Lupita Nyong'o.
Yes.
Okay.
Because she's a fantastic actor and I would love to work with her. Is another person that I would love to also work with. That's the other name that came to my mind. Just to be like, ooh, what is it like to work with like a racehorse?
Yeah.
In that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll reward you. You get all three.
Okay.
You get all three. I know that's what you're gonna go to do next week. I just give somehow I'm like, here you go. It would be cool if you directed like a movie or a show or anything where like your whole cast was actor creators.
Yeah.
Like
you
we would
all
like
fight.
Oh, maybe that's the too many cooks in the kitchen thing. Maybe, yeah.
Possibly,
I mean,
possibly, but maybe it'd be great. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting.
That's fun. Yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah. You had shared that one of the pilots that you had auditioned for, I believe, was Yellow Jackets. Is that right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. You had mentioned you auditioned for Yellow Jackets and that you thought it was so cool to then get to see, like watch the pilot on screen, and that it's such a cool kind of experience to be able to audition for a show and then get to see what it actually ends up like. Because sometimes it's nothing about what you pictured. So I was wondering, what's another pilot or show, and if you don't feel comfortable or are not able to like name the title, that's totally okay too, that when you ended up seeing it on screen it was totally different than what you imagined, or it really surprised you in some way?
I don't have an immediate answer for that one.
Yeah, that one's not really a martial arts worthy, like that one's a hard one.
It's a great question though. Like, what is one that I was like, wow, that is completely different from what I thought it was going to be? It's just going to take me a second to remember. What ones? I mean, Yellow Jackets is one that I was like, how is this going to work? They're doing like young girls and then older versions. And when I auditioned, they were keeping the same actors for the young girls and the older version. Like what actually happened is that they casted separately, which I think was wise. And the character I auditioned for doesn't exist. So I was like, what is the tone of this? What is this going to be? And like, this seems weird. A girls soccer team. How is this going to be interesting? And I was like, wow, it's great. I love the show so much. So like, I guess that I, by default, because that's when you said, I was like, oh yeah, that was when I was like super like, wow, I did not know how that was going to go. I was not
Yeah.
interested in the girls' soccer
Yeah. Yeah.
like thing. Screw that. And I was like, wow, that got dark and really great.
It can be so, I think about this like from getting auditions, but then also in creating stuff when I think about other people auditioning for it. It is so hard to audition for a new show because it's not just the character on an island. Like these creators have envisioned this whole world, these parameters that certain jokes will work here and certain jokes won't. I can't even talk now. Won't. And you can do, of course, and for like, people listening and watching, like you'll do a bunch of research. You can often see who the director is or who the production company is or who the network is, like all of those things. And you get all of your clues from that. But, then I think about being a creator on a show and being able to, like, for example, improvise on set even, or as an actor coming in and trying to improvise. It really is so difficult sometimes to understand, like, what is the tone of this new show that I have three pages
I have a
from?
great answer for you.
Oh my God, amazing. No. Your face oh my God, I was so excited. Okay. Your face lit up. I loved it. Okay, tell me.
I auditioned for an unknown, untitled, no context Jordan Peele movie, which ended up being Nope.
Wait, so did it say Jordan Peele or no?
Yes. So
I knew it was
his
nothing.
movie, and then no context. So they're like, we're gonna get you to audition for it. No, they didn't say Jordan Peele. Someone had figured it out for me.
Okay.
They're like, that's the Jordan Peele movie, and I was like, oh, okay. No context. You don't even get a script. You don't even get the real script. They give you an old script. I think it was like Boy Meets World. They gave me like a scene from Boy Meets World. And they're like, we want 90s sitcom, like laugh track sitcom. I had playing a Korean mother, and I was like, I have no context. Like, what could this possibly be? Like, there was nothing, there was no context of what Nope was going to be. Nope was not out at the time when they were doing auditions. Like, there was no even like, Jordan Peele is making Nope and it's about this. Like, it was like, I was like, what could this 90s sitcom?
That's the thing. You know that he's not making a 90s sitcom. So you're like, is it a comment on 90s sitcom? Is it going to be a spoof, a parody? Is it going to be the whole story? Is it going to be part of it? Are we going to do flashbacks? Like, I wonder if you finding out the Jordan Peele thing, I wonder if that helped or hurt. Like, did that actually help you, or did that just add pressure?
I totally went left field and like was like 90s sitcom. Great. I'm going to go really broad acting. And then also I put in a laugh track. I remember I paused for laughs and put in a laugh track.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, and like the casting director really liked it. Obviously I didn't get the role, but like now seeing Nope, I was like, what the fuck was the role? And I'm like, oh, and I actually think it was really cool that he casted white parents in the end, because it's, again, weird commentary on it, but it would have been for the actor parents when they were doing the sitcom where the boy
with the
monkey.
Yes, with the monkey.
And so my God, so nuts to see like, what is the context of this scene? Like, what is it? I don't know where the context of this scene. Where's there a 90s sitcom where people are laughing? Like, and
that
Nope.
That's so interesting. Even like thinking like from the casting side of when they are casting those characters, it's like, well, what do we? I guess that is I'm thinking, I guess that is the direction that we give the actors, is like play it like a 90s sitcom because you're in a 90s sitcom, but then add on Jordan Peele and that it's a movie that's going to be released in 2022, 2021. I can't remember. 2022. Wow, this year has been long.
I know.
Anyway, this year, long.
Yeah.
It like the poor actors auditioning, I feel like that just does it. It's wild. Like, what is this a joke? I'd be like, is this a prank? Like, what's going on? What are we using this for?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, I've gotten ones for that we suspected was Star Wars as well. I have not figured out what that was for. Like, I was like, no idea.
God, it's so different. It's like, I don't even know.
It's so radically different, so radically unknown. I can't even guess what project this one was for. Like, so that was an interesting moment with Nope. I was like, this was Nope. Oh, it was for that scene. Like, crazy.
Wow. Oh my God, I'm so glad you thought of that one.
Yeah. I was like,
that was fun. Yeah, that was a great one. Well, the way that I like to end these episodes is I'm trying to get better at asking for what I want, putting it out there in the universe. I feel like you're very good at this already, which I'm gonna let it rub off on me. And so I like to end these with allowing my guests to kind of put out there, like, what's something you'd like to put out in the universe? What's something you'd like to manifest? Whatever wording feels authentic to you. Maybe somebody listening can give you that opportunity or give you that thing. It can be personal or professional. What is something you would like to put out there that you'd like?
Oh, I love this. Okay, so the thing I'm manifesting right now is
Yeah.
I want to book a lead on a big show, like a cable show, like an HBO show, like something bigger.
Mhm.
Specifically like big enough that I don't have to audition as much anymore. Because what I'm finding really difficult with acting and directing is like when I'm directing, I can't be auditioning. So when I finish directing, I gotta like audition a bunch to maybe get an acting role. Whereas like if I was established enough so that I could be directing and then offered roles, then to act, and therefore I could juggle acting and directing a little bit more easily.
Yeah.
That is the engine that I want my life to have. And I hope when we talk again in the future, I'm like, I got it. The engine is happening now, where it's like I'm directing and then I know that I'm going to be acting after I'm directing, but that can't happen currently because I'm still I still need the time to be auditioning. So whatever role I book, I want it to be big enough to start that engine for me.
Yes, absolutely. To go to offer only. Samantha is on offer only. No more auditioning. Yeah.
That's what I want. And I probably also want a feature to do a film festival tour and just to establish more of my voice as a director. And that's something I'm working on. So hopefully we'll talk about that.
Well, honestly, I mean, I have no doubt that it will happen. The last podcast I listened to you on, which was, or no, I guess I listened to one from earlier this year, but the one I listened to from 2019, you were acting, being like, I would really like to get into directing. And then fast forward to a couple years later, we're talking and I'm like, oh, you directed half of the final season of Second Gen. Oh, you directed an entire series, which we talked about, Lady Ada's Secret Society, a Hallmark movie, a TV movie. I'm like, oh, I guess when you say you're going to do something, you do it. Like it ends up, you're doing it. So I don't doubt. Let's check in 6 months even. And you'll be like, oh, sorry, can I move our Zoom lunch date? Because actually I'm shooting I'm a lead in this HBO series. And then later I'm going to go do a meeting where I'm directing a film that's premiering at Can.
Yeah,
do you say con or can? What do you say?
Oh my God. Either or are fine.
Right?
I say both. I waffle. Who knows? But
I
like
waffle so hard.
So
and now that I know
hard.
it's on recording, that's why I'm like, con. I don't know.
Who cares? I think anyone who's being picky about that, I'm like, you're being insecure about something else then, dude. But like,
right? It's the editing thing. They're just saying you spelled it wrong 100%. Who cares and who cars?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. And it's like the one tip I was given to you about manifestation was like, act like it's already gonna happen. No, not that it's gonna happen. Act like it's already happening. And that is like hard. But that's something I'm like, yes, it's already happening. And for the first time, I feel like I do feel that. I'm like, no, it's already happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's constant. What's yours?
I want to get in more writers' rooms as story coordinator or writing assistants because I want to see how other people make their machines happen. And you know what? If I'm really, really truthful, I want to get like a lead in a show here, like a comedy. Absolutely. Yeah. I want to be a lead in a comedy show in Toronto. And then it can be separately or together with that. I want to write. Yeah. I would like to be helping other people make their project where I'm not the one everyone's asking questions to. And that feels silly. It felt silly to say, so I didn't say it for a long time. But I think there's just so much to learn about watching other people like lead the ship, pilot the plane, whatever.
There's so much to learn.
So much. Yeah. And I feel so fortunate that I'm like, I ended up in a position where I'm getting to develop a show. And similar to what you're saying, like it is a crash course. Like you learn so much. But also I'm learning how me and these other two people would make something and how we would break a season with these specific producers. And
you learn about their leadership. Like it's so great. It's funny that I love that you're like, oh, you were like not saying that because you're like, it sounds silly. And I was opposite. I was not saying I want to be a lead in a show because I felt like, Sam, like that's, I don't know. Is it egotistical? Is it too much? Or it's like you have no control over that, or be more realistic. But it's like, no, I want to get more specific. I want to lead. I want it, and I want it to be not comedy. Like I want it minimal dramedy or drama. Like it's what I want. And it feels crazy to be like, I want a lead of an HBO show.
No, but I feel like we have to say it. No, it does
I
feel
agree.
stupid. You know what is here's the one that I want that feels the most shameful. Like, let's just say I'm sweating so hard right now.
The best.
Okay. I've been doing like, I'm committing myself full-time to acting for 10 years, almost 10 years, 9.5 years. And I am still non-union. And that is something. And there could be a million different theories as, you know what? This is my own insecurity being like having to follow up with why.
Yeah.
But that is something, because the shame is like, oh, well, it must be because I'm not good enough. You know what I mean? And I know there's a hierarchy of union and non-union, and sometimes it doesn't matter and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that bit of like, it's part of it is still because I want to feel validated in a way, but I also know that the part that wants that, once I become union, it will just thirst for something else. It's never going to quench that. So that's something I got to figure out in therapy. But the other side of it is that being non-union right now, especially in the last like year or so, is actually preventing me from work. Because like I have
getting the bigger things.
And like friends who are I think it's preventing me from auditioning for things, and that's my theory, because I'm in the non-union pool. But also because like I have friends or fellow creators who are creating things who say, hey, do you want to audition for this role for this show I'm making? Or like, hey, could you come in for a day and do this? And I can't, because yes, because they're union shows, but they're at the budget that doesn't allow for a non-union to purchase a permit to work on it, which I totally understand. And the union is doing what they should be doing, what I would want them to be doing for me. They're protecting union actors. But that's something I carry so much shame every time someone's like, you're union, right? And I'm like, no. And
I feel it's so cool that like did you say, and you don't want to be, or now you want to be?
And I want to be. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
I feel like that's so amazing for you to share. Cause like, I feel like I have a friend who's also non-union and has been acting for many years and has been quite successful as a non-union person. And honestly, they just chose not to be non-union for a while because they were doing stuff and
they were booking. Yeah.
And they're like, this is better for me. Like I'm booking more by being non-union and now they want to be union. And there's something also too, I think of a category of like a lot of good actors who are non-union actors who then stay non-union for a long time. And now they're like, how the fuck do I get in the union? Like it's really a
and
thing.
There's so much like stuff going on now, which I'm sure you know, and like there's, and like not to get into like details and stuff, but there's just a lot of like political stuff going on for viewers and listeners that are also, it's essentially preventing union actors from getting union work and non-union actors from potentially ever getting into the union. Like it's, so it always feels like just really bad timing for me. And whenever I make a shift or make a pivot or whatever. And so if I say the number one goal right now, it's get in the union. I want to be a lead in a comedy show here in Toronto. And I want to get into more writers' rooms. And I don't even need my ideas to be on the page. I just want to be there and be of service and in return, like absorb the learning.
Have you looked into Anthony Farrell's showrunner course?
So, oh no, I don't think so. I'm trying to think. Tyra Sweet had mentioned something. Maybe.
You should look into that because he's a great showrunner and he's running a course on how to be a showrunner, and you get to, I believe you get like in-room experience, like not necessarily on his shows, but he like, I think simulates that in some way. So you should look into that.
So I thought he did a showrunner boot camp for BIPOC creators. Or not even creators. Sorry, we've said creators BIPOC so writers. Many times. BIPOC writers. Thank you. Yes, creators, just like the word that's coming out. So I know of that one. Which I would not apply to, and like and rightfully so, would not apply to. But his name, I currently, oh my God, now I'm just is this the drink? I'm being really transparent with you. I have a list of like, these are the people I want to reach out to. Be like, hey, do you need a story coordinator? His name has popped up many times from other people. But just like, hey, do you need help making your dreams come true? I sound so creepy.
No,
because I want to help that.
I think you should. More. Like, that's brilliant because a lot of people don't send those emails and a lot of women don't send those emails. So like, I think being like, hey, do you need a story coordinator? And they might say no, but then be like, hey, can we have a coffee
Yeah.
And then be like, and then
maybe-
you can ask them, how do I become a story coordinator for you then?
Yes,
Like eventually,
totally.
like what
Eventually.
do you need?
Yeah.
What do you need in that way? Like that's what I would
Mhm.
also say to people. People tend to stop at the first no.
Mm-hmm.
Like give
Totally.
them
That it
like
seems
two
like
options. Yeah.
It seems like a like a oh my god, like a rejection. That's the word I'm looking
Yes.
for. That they take
Yeah,
it as
yeah,
a
yeah.
rejection, which I totally get. But I think it's funny. The more story coordinator, can't even talk now. The more story coordinators that I talk to, the more I've heard people be like, oh yeah, but I couldn't finish the show because I got a gig on this, or because I booked a show on this, and so someone had to come in and replace me, and I was just like looking around and trying to figure out who to replace me. And so if it's a no the first time, I'm like, okay, great. If you need a replacement, I'll email you in 6 months to remind you, to just be like, hey, do you need anybody now? Or like, hey, what are you looking for? What can I do to help you out?
And get that FaceTime with them where you talk to them so that they feel like they know you. Because most of the time I feel like those positions are more likely to go to people when they feel like they know them, especially if it's the last minute, I gotta call somebody.
Right.
They'll remember you better.
Yeah. Thank you. That's such a good point, especially for story coordinator. I feel like it is so much about how you work and who you are.
Yeah.
Because you're not, anyway, sometimes you're writing a script, but I just mean that it's so much about, I mean,
are you a good
jobs.
support? I think you got to be a good support to be a good story coordinator.
Yes. Yeah. And that's something you can feel out when you're chatting with someone, more so than email, faceless email. So
especially if you're coming with good questions, good things to talk about, like you're prepared, you can really show someone how prepared you are. The art of the coffee date is a real big thing. And like, don't go in just being like, help me with anything. Like, go very specific people. Like, it's a thing.
The art of the coffee date. You have so many wonderful nuggets of wisdom, Samantha. Truly. Like, I could be chatting with you all night long. I so appreciate you doing this with me, and listeners and viewers don't know this, but I had to reschedule to bring my little senior dog to the vet, and you were just so gracious about it. And from my research of you secretly, I kind of knew that you would understand, but still, I was like, if it's going to be any guest, it makes sense. Totally. It's Samantha. She's going to totally understand. Totally. But it's still an inconvenience. So thank you so much. And it's so nice to officially meet you now.
Yeah, no, this is so great. Thank you for doing so much research and like such great questions. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you. This is not a situation you should have to come in and interview yourself. So I should be researched and know what I'm talking about. Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Liquid Courage podcast. If you liked what you saw and you're looking to support the show, here's a few ways you can help. You can leave the show a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, or you can follow the show on Instagram and TikTok at Liquid Courage Podcast. Or, and best of all, you can tell a friend about the show. Tell a family member, tell a coworker, post about your favorite episode online. Spread the word. That really is the best way to help support the show and help it grow. Did I just rhyme? Okay, until the next episode, cheers.